Hi, I'm your host, Jürgen Strauss from Innova.buzz, and I'm really thrilled to welcome back to the Innova.buzz podcast today a repeat guest from Louisville, Tennessee in the USA, Mark Schaefer, who's a globally recognized marketing strategist, a keynote speaker, and the author of 11 books, I think, maybe more,
That's
including
right.
including his latest book, Audacious, The Rebel's Guide to Disruptive Marketing. Mark is renowned for his ability to challenge conventional thinking and to inspire businesses to embrace bold, creative, and most importantly to me, human-centered marketing strategies. Welcome back to the Innova.buzz podcast, Mark. It's a real privilege to have you back again.
Thanks so much for having me.
Now, I'm really looking forward to our conversation. I find it inspiring how you've combined your deep expertise in marketing with a fresh, audacious approach to cutting through the noise and to grab attention and to really build those connections and those relationships. To start with, can you share what inspired you to write Audacious and why you believe that disruption, as you call it, is so critical in today's marketing landscape?
Well, it might be fun to start with a story from the book that sort of was the genesis of the whole idea behind the book. I was attending a conference in Austin, South by Southwest. It's a big festival for thought leadership. And at the end of the day, I was having dinner with friends, and all of a sudden, people started standing up and leaving the restaurant. They just left their food. Well, my back was to the door, and I turned around to see what is going on, and they were all standing on the street. So we left, my friends. We got up and we left to see what was going on. And up in the sky was a drone show with an ad for a new television series. And at the end of the animation, there was a QR code in the sky. And you could click the QR code and go to a trailer for this new show. Now, this was 3 or 4 years ago. And today, drone shows, we see them at music festivals and sporting events. But at this time, it was the first time we'd ever seen anything like this. And I was haunted by this experience because everybody was taking video and sharing it with their friends. And we took a selfie with the QR code, with the ad. We took a selfie with the ad. We were immersed in the ad. And I became obsessed with this idea that, well, for the last 12 years or more, I've been writing and speaking about how do we stand out above the noise? How do we become a signal above the noise? And I challenge myself to think about if someone said, Mark, we want you to create an ad so great that people would leave their hot meal to go see it, not just see it, but record it and share it with their friends. Could I do it? The answer is no, I couldn't. So I became curious. What went into this? How did they come up with this? Was there an underlying lesson here about how we need to stand out in an AI dominated world? So I found out who did this, and it happened to be an agency in New York I was familiar with, Giant Spoon. They've been an acclaimed agency. They were named by Fast Company as one of the most innovative companies in the world. And I said, I want to come to your offices. I want to learn how you do this. I want to sit in your meetings. I want you to share all your secrets, and then I'm going to put it into a book. And they said, absolutely. Well, this led me on a winding path, not just to Giant Spoon, but to meet and talk to some of the greatest creative thinkers in our world today. And the reason why this has such an urgent message today, I believe, is because we live in a world where competent doesn't cut it. If we're competent, AI is competent. AI is more than competent in many cases. And as we live in this world where AI is nipping at the heels of our skill sets, sometimes even our careers, as especially, I'm in the, in the coaching and consulting business myself. Where does humanity fit in this world where AI is taking over in so many places? And that's really how I came up with the idea for this book is where are the human fireworks, the uniquely human spaces where we can still dominate, create, and connect to our customers in a special way.
Yeah, there's so much to explore there, and it's fascinating. And one of the things that I had a conversation recently with a podcast guest around the power of community and community, how community today is the important thing for marketing. And one of the examples he brought up reminded me of the elf example in your book, which they really tap into this idea of community. And that story you told about the drone show, that certainly tapped into community because it inspired people to go and share it. So sort of the second level of marketing, if you like, was done by that community that was built around, first of all, the people that saw the drone show, and then the people that saw the social media posts about the drone show and videos of it and shared that on,
Yeah.
which is something that I think AI can't replicate. I mean, you said
Yes.
something there about AI and competency that I wonder if you could elaborate on a little bit more, because I kind of feel like AI has the base competency. And if I, for example, go onto one of the AI agents and say, build me a marketing campaign that does this, that, and the other, that I'll get something. But what I'll get is kind of a compilation of what's out there already in the internet world. It's not going to be something that stands out or is different.
Well, I think that there is a unique aspect of human creativity. It brings up an interesting idea. Now, I've seen enough where AI is beginning to create in new ways. The new models are beginning to think and reason and not just uh, spill out stuff that has been on the web for 10 years. Last month, there was a story here where a humanoid robot with an AI brain uh, created an oil painting that sold for $1.6 million.
Okay.
And, I think some of that is novelty,
Hmm.
but the fact of the matter is that there's an element of creativity that builds on the past and iterates. It always has been that way. And this is, a robot that created something beautiful and exceptional. I mean, I think in my own world, um, AI has helped me brainstorm. And I think where humans fit, and this is, one of the ideas in the book, is that art is an expression of the human experience. That's something we own. That's something I think we will always own. AI might be able to trick us into thinking they're expressing the human experience, but I think there will always be a place for art. If I think about the things that are most dear to me, it's something that was created by a human being, something that meant something to a human being. But it suggests, again, it gets back to this idea of competent. You know, just like today, competent art doesn't cut it.
Hmm.
AI is going to be able to do
Yeah.
competent art. And it suggests that our marketing, our content will have to eventually approach some level of art for it to stand out above the noise of AI.
Hmm. Yeah, you said something there that I think is interesting, and that's um, in that context of art, and I think it applies to marketing in general, is that idea of meaning. And I think of some of the bits of art I've got lying around home. Um, you certainly wouldn't describe them as competent, And in fact, recently I came across something in my son's room. Now he's just turned 40 and living way away, but we still have stuff in what was his room previously in a closet. And I pulled something out and I said to my wife, I think we can throw this away. And it was just a stuffed cloth circle with a bit of painting on it. And she said, no, we're keeping that. And the reason she wanted to keep that was it was the first thing he ever created as a child. And she said, I had so much trouble in the early days of school getting him to actually sit down and create something because he was a very geeky kid. He was always into computer games and all that sort of stuff. And whilst he read a lot, this was one of the first things he actually created himself. So it had, whilst it is certainly not a competent artwork, it had meaning.
Right.
And I wonder,
Right.
isn't there an element of that in sort of these marketing campaigns, particularly that example you gave of the drone, that there's sort of a meaning there that's beyond just the competency of and even the novelty of what they did.
Oh, yeah, 100%. If you think about what is the purpose of creating a brand, it's creating meaning in your mind, it's creating an emotional expectation. So if I say to you, hey, Jürgen, I heard that Coca-Cola is building a hotel in your hometown. You, you might be able to think about what that would look like. You have an expectation of when I open the door of this hotel for the first time, what's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? What am I going to see? And that is the emotional expectation that's come from building this brand for years and years and years. Whether you're a big company, whether you're a small company, whether you're an individual coach and entrepreneur like me, we're trying to create that meaning. That's the most important thing. It's the most important thing in marketing for coaching and consulting like us.
Yeah, it's interesting, creating that expectation. Well, one of the things you talk about in terms of standing out from the noise in the book is awe, the idea of awe
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
context of marketing. So what do you mean by that, and how does that work to have something stand out and maybe even build that experience or build that expectation?
I think this is one of the most interesting contributions of the book. Many years ago, a friend of mine did this research. He founded a company called Buzz Sumo, and they would look at billions of pieces of content and marketing material and try to determine what are the key things that make things go viral, what makes them popular, what makes them resonate. And one study he did showed that the word most associated with content and stories that go viral is awe. And it kind of makes sense. You see something you've never seen before, you want others to see it and you share it. But I was always stuck on this idea. How do you incorporate that into your business? Because to me, awe is, standing in the mountains or holding a newborn baby or listening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. How do you do that for a blog post? How do you do that for your podcast? And then the world sort of opened up to me in this idea when I read this book called Awe. So there's this social psychologist, Dacher Keltner, and he studied awe, which he claims is the last human emotion to ever be studied. And he said, yes, awe comes from experiencing something vast, but he also talked about this thing called everyday awe. And everyday awe comes from bringing people together in a way that creates this emotional contagion he calls collective effervescence. So an example of this would be, let's say your favorite musical artist is performing in your city and you go by yourself and you listen to this artist and you have a perfectly pleasant time. But then compare that if you go with a group of friends and maybe you go to dinner first and you all go to the show and you're singing and you're dancing and you're just enjoying yourself. Experiencing it with people makes it different. It creates this element of awe. And this is available to anyone in any business, but most people don't think about it that way. This is a particularly important opportunity because we have this vast part of the world that does not have shared experiences anymore. Whole generations are experiencing their world through earbuds. They're listening to their favorite music. They're listening to their favorite movies and watching their favorite TV shows and listening to audiobooks. And they do it by themselves. And we have a whole generation that's lacking shared experiences. And this has been in the newspaper, the mental health issues, the isolation, the depression that comes with being alone so much. So I just think it's a massive opportunity for businesses to think about if a brand is creating this emotional connection, this emotional expectation. And one of the ways we can do that, by the way, this is something AI can't do. This is singularly a human thing, that we bring people together in special ways that creates awe. What if marketing our business means adding more awe? I think it's a new and interesting way to think.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And it kind of comes back to one of the things we spoke about earlier, the idea of community. And yeah, I'm fascinated by this collective effervescence thing. Could you dig deeper for us on that one? It kind of sounds like a shared emotional experience, but how does that work? I mean, you gave the example of the concert, and I think we can all probably relate to that. But is there
Yeah.
something
So
in?
I'll give you a specific example. So I host a marketing retreat. It's a small retreat. I limit it to 30 people. We have it at a lodge in the woods. It's a pleasant time. We think big thoughts and have fellowship together. And to me, it's a meaningful gathering. And I knew I did a good job with this retreat. But here's the part of the retreat that always stunned me. When people left feedback on this retreat, they said, "This changed my life." I thought, well, I didn't expect that. We had good food and we thought big thoughts and we had good conversations, but I didn't expect anyone to say that it changed my life. Now, if you view this through the filter of awe, what do we do here? So I organize this event. So first of all, it's limited to 30 people. And in 2.5 days, you have an opportunity to connect with everybody. Where you sit, where you are in meetings, how you participate in the meetings, where you sit at dinner, how we serve dinner. It's 100% organized around creating conversations. In the afternoons, we have a hike in the woods. And so there's an author, a beloved author, Nancy Harhut. We were on a hike and someone was hiking at the front of the line with me and she was taking a picture. And I said, "Oh, you're taking a picture?" She said, "I never imagined I would take a hike with you and Nancy Harhut." So it wasn't just a walk in the woods.
Yeah.
It was, she was experiencing awe. We play games together. We go out into the country. We listen to a concert together. We have a barbecue and we celebrate. And so to me, I've been having this event for 6 years and it never dawned on me. I could never explain what made it so special until I read the book about awe and realized that everything we were doing was to create this emotional reaction, this joy. And I said, now I get it. Now I know why people love this so much. And so my marketing plan for this event is add more awe.
Well, that was the question that came up for me as you were describing. That was obvious. I mean, there's two parts, I suppose, to this. The first part is if we have a service or, let's say, an event or a product, how do we build awe into that? And I guess it's building awe into the experience people have when they participate in the event or when they use the product or service. But before that, how do we build awe into the marketing that we do for that particular service, event, or
Yeah.
product?
I was talking to someone today who's an executive in the retail industry. And, I get anxiety whenever I buy clothes. I don't like to shop. I don't like to be in stores. I really don't know what I'm doing. I just want to get out of there. And then we have this chain in America. It's a place for men to get haircuts. And when you go into this place, it's filled with televisions like a sports bar. And you walk in this place and you go, "Oh, okay, well, I kind of feel at home here." I never feel that when I shop.
Hmm.
I never feel that I belong to a place. I just want to get the heck out of there. And I think so this idea of, what if you created a space, an event, a gathering, a community where people feel like they belong? And it's not just about creating the emotional connection to you, it's about creating this emotional connection to others.
Hmm.
And it's an opportunity right in front of our face because we have a world that's so lonely, so isolated. They're longing to belong, and we can help them do that. And normally we don't even think about it.
Hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, you talked about sort of the world that's longing for that connection. And I think well, certainly I know in the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic when everybody was experiencing lockdowns and um, we're kind of sick and tired of Zoom meetings, but I started running some community events on Zoom and I did them and I think I uh, by accident, perhaps not by design, created that awe because there were some events that were just amazing, and people
Wow.
the feedback I got there was very similar. There was sort of some huge business opportunities came out of it. That was a
Wow.
1.5 hour event where people had perhaps 3 or 4 two-minute conversations with that one other person, but that kind of triggered let's get together
Yeah.
and have a longer chat
That's a,
later.
that's a
Mm,
fantastic example.
mm.
Fantastic. And it wouldn't have happened without you. So that I love that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's often we kind of think we have to put ourselves in the center, right? And it's the same for the marketing, a marketing initiative to put the product or service in the center, and yet it's really about building that community.
Mhm.
Mm,
Yeah. The last book I wrote was about brand community called Belonging to the Brand. And the research showed that when people make those types of connections, like they did in your meeting, where they become friends and they start to collaborate, that goodwill spills over to the brand.
mm,
And the research suggests, Jürgen, that the mindset almost should be if we can create some opportunity, some event, some community where people get to know each other, that's even more important than them getting to know us. That they literally belong to the brand. If they're in a community, they're not going to leave their friends. They're going to stay there. They belong to the brand.
mm. Yeah, that's true, and a lot of coaching services um, follow a similar sort of model, and they're probably not following the advice in your book. They're just doing it by intuitive things. But it's a common thing to hear there that you join for the coaching, but people stay for the community.
Yeah,
Hmm.
very well said.
Hmm. All right. One of the things you'll also talk about, which I find fascinating, is the idea of breaking taboos in marketing. And then the other side of that, of course, is where are the boundaries? How far do you push those boundaries? And what are the risks of kind of going overboard?
Well, I explore all of that in the book. And I think that's part of sort of moving beyond just competency and competent communications is looking at your industry and thinking about has boring been institutionalized? Everybody kind of the same because this is the way we've always done it.
Mm.
And is there an opportunity to break bad rules for good reasons? And that doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean being offensive. It doesn't mean, skirting the law or something like that. It just means, is there some opportunity for us to be a little different? And there's research that supports this. And we're starting to see this show up in the marketing world. And the research, I mean, I love this book called Contagious by Jonah Berger. He's a professor at the University of Pennsylvania, and he wrote this book about the psychology of sharing stories and stories that spread. And he said that the most powerful thing to get a story to spread is when it makes this emotional connection, the connection you and I have been talking about. An emotional connection that is like fun, that's positive, that's inspiring, or a connection that gives you anxiety or maybe even fear. And it's like, wait a minute, what? And that's part of his book that's been totally ignored by businesses. And there's this example he talks about that if you ever went to an airport and you landed and you couldn't find where you parked your car, you probably remember that.
Yep.
Now you don't remember the 100 times you found your car, but but anxiety creates this strong emotion
Mm.
that helps you internalize and experience. So, uh, have you one of the recent marketing campaigns that just dominated the press here in America is this cookie brand called Nutter Butter. Have you heard about that campaign at all?
No, I haven't.
Okay. All right. So this is a brand. I think they're like the number 6 or 7 cookie brand in America. It's a peanut butter tasting. It's a tasty cookie, but it doesn't mean anything to anybody. So they started creating these videos on TikTok, and I'm not kidding you. It's like an acid trip. It's just like it's almost like a horror movie with all these random images and noises and names flying around. And then some of these themes keep getting repeated in the videos. And people are starting to look at, are they telling a new kind of story here? Yeah, and what is going on? Well, it's just nothing you would ever think of in terms of this is what we're going to do to sell cookies. But as a matter of fact, in the last 12 months, they have quadrupled their sales and they've quadrupled the amount of people searching for them, online. And part of it is that I think certain consumers, not everybody, but certain consumers are just hungry for something new,
Mm.
something different. And, cookies, that's an example where everybody kind of does the same thing. They just sort of, market in the same way year after year after year. You have coupons and you have, TV ads and this brand just broke the mold, not in a way that was harmful, but in a way that was provocative. And it just changed the history of the brand.
Mm. Yeah, it's fascinating. One of the things you touched on there was the use of TikTok. And I mean, social media in general has been growing dramatically, but certainly TikTok seems to be the one that's um, absolutely dominating this sort of out-of-the-box marketing space, and particularly community recently. And I know there's
It's
reference,
not without controversy.
yeah, obviously. There's reference in your book to Elf Beauty and their TikTok campaigns, and I've been sort of watching that a little bit, and I've been fascinated by how their whole business model seems to be a bit of a disruption of the beauty industry. But talk to us a little bit more about, the marketing that Elf Beauty does.
So the framework of the book really is divided into three major sections. It talks about disrupting the story, and I think Nutter Butter is a great example of that. The next section is disrupting where stories are told, and Elf is a good example of that. And then the last section is disrupting who tells the story. And what we're seeing from Elf, which I think is unique, is when you think about a cosmetic brand, I mean, you might think about advertisements, in Vogue magazine, or maybe something glamorous on TV with a movie star. And they have a space on Roblox, which is a virtual reality game played by teenagers. They're sponsoring race cars, and they're doing a lot on TikTok. But the most notable thing they've done on TikTok is they've started to create music videos. Last year, they had the number one music video on TikTok by far. It was created, written, produced by this cosmetic company. And the way TikTok works is you don't really create content. You create content that is then morphed and edited and transfigured by other people. So you're just giving them, a recipe for other people to do their own thing. And people took their music video and turned it into 5 million more videos with billions of views. And so I think the lesson here is they're just taking a fresh look at where they need to be. They're leaning into the signals to say, well, here's the traditional cosmetic playbook, but that's over. Our customers, they don't go to Vogue magazine anymore. They're playing video games. They're watching YouTube videos. They're doing dances on TikTok. And that's where we need to be. And, I think there's a great lesson there that if you haven't really thought about where are your customers these days, where are they showing up, where do they want you to be? The world is changing so fast. The communication channels are changing so fast. Consumer behavior is changing so fast. It's a good time to give yourself a little wake-up call and see if there's an opportunity to disrupt your marketing by showing up in a new place and delighting your customers.
Yeah, there's a really important point there. I think it kind of comes back to some of the core fundamentals of marketing, knowing who your customers are and where they hang out and how you reach them and how you connect with them and what really motivates them. But then looking at, well, what can I do to be different, and touch on all those things. One of the things you talk about in the book is an Audacity index, where you kind of look at 5 aspects to assess, how audacious is my marketing campaign. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, there's an interesting story behind that chapter. When I finished writing the book, I uploaded the book into ChatGPT, and I uploaded the book into Claude, another artificial intelligence large language model. And I said, read the book and tell me what is missing. And of course, these things work in 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And both models came back with the same answer. you need to have a chapter on measurement. Now, in my original outline for my book, my original plan, I had the chapter on measurement. And as I was completing the book, the book was starting to get a little long. I was starting to get a little tired. The topic of measurement is just too hard, and I skipped it. But based on the feedback from ChatGPT, I wrote the damn chapter. So I wrote a new chapter about measurement, and it was hard. And what I was trying to do, so the whole book is talking about, doing something that's a little unsettled, that's a little audacious. Well, how do you know if it's working? How do you know if you're pushing yourself? And again, it's how you measure it might be different than how Elf measures it.
Mm.
In something that's very conservative and traditional, like management, coaching, and consulting, if you just move a little bit, that might be cataclysmic in your industry. Where, cosmetics and B2C, the expectation might be higher. But it gives you a framework to kind of judge yourself and saying, what's holding us back? What's holding us back? Is it where it's usually some kind of fear. It's fear of, um, maybe upsetting our boss. It's a fear of imposter syndrome, of trying something new. Maybe it's a fear because we think it's going to be hard to get something new through the legal department and get it approved. So, like, where is the fear, and where do we break that down? And how do we start moving into something that people will really connect with? Because, you know, um, something we didn't cover that, but I think it's important. There's research in the book that shows that 2/3 of all marketing, it's a very good study. 2/3 of all marketing, B2B and B2C, creates no emotional connection whatsoever.
Mhm.
It's just, it doesn't work.
Mm.
And the people who did this research were so amazed that so many companies were wasting so much money on boring marketing. They thought of the most boring thing they could think of, which was a cow eating grass. They created a video of a cow eating grass and tested it in the same research. And the video of a cow eating grass performed just as good as most B2B and B2C marketing today. So the bar is low, my friend.
Mm.
The bar really is
Yeah,
low.
that's the good news.
It's just to do something
Yeah.
a little bit different.
Mm. Yeah, that's funny. You know, it's kind of watching grass grow is almost as exciting as
Yeah.
most traditional marketing. Mm.
Yeah.
All right. Now, one of the things you do talk about, and we've talked quite a bit about AI and marketing, and even AI as a tool to critique your book. You talk about proof of human as a concept and a critical differentiator today. How does that work, and how can we kind of do that? Because that's one thing that um, I puzzle over quite a lot, because I'm a very heavy user of particularly ChatGPT, but also Claude, and I've been playing a little bit with Quiet DeepSeek. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, I've found some absolutely fascinating use cases that are really helpful for what I do. But I'm also always aware of, if I use any of that as is, um, or usually I don't use it as is. I modify it or alter it. But how do I um, differentiate that from somebody else that just gets AI to spit out content and use that
Sure.
as is?
Uh, it's a fascinating question, and so most of the book is sort of an anti-A book, an
Hmm.
anti-AI book. It's like saying, okay, where do humans uniquely fit? So it's an anti-A book, anti-AI book until at the end when it's not.
Hmm.
When I say, look, we live in this time of magic, absolute magic that can help us be more audacious and more disruptive and more creative. So why not use these things? And I think I saw research just a week or so ago that I think helps answer your question. And they did a study. It was a very good peer-reviewed study of, of researchers and how they were using AI. And the results of the research were pretty much as you expected, that the researchers that were using AI had more discoveries, had more patents, had more product launches. But here's the part that was quite interesting. It made the best researchers better. So if you're already good at what you do, if you're already established in your business, if you immerse yourself in this world as you have, and you're using AI, it can create a distance between you and your competitors who may not be as good as you, may not be as experienced as you, or may not be using AI as well as you. So I think that's a really important idea, that even if you are the best, even if you have a lot of experience, a lot of human connection in your business, AI can make you better at what you do, and distance yourself from the competition.
Yeah, and in some ways, I mean, I look at it as a tool, and a tool is only as good as how you use it and where you use it in the appropriate way. I mean, the whole classic, um, if you know how to use a hammer, then everything becomes a nail. But obviously, everything is not a nail, so it's not necessarily the right tool for everything.
Not yet. I think it is a difference, though. I mean, there is something profound going on. If you think about what how you and I have grown up in the world of business and organization and structure. Historically, our businesses have been built on intelligence units.
Hmm.
So you have an intelligence unit, a person for HR, for R&D, for marketing, for accounting. And as those intelligence units get more intelligent, maybe they pick up new skills, maybe they get a new degree, then they're rewarded. But what happens in our world when we have abundant, basically free super intelligence?
Hmm.
Now, we don't have that now, but we're inexorably moving in that direction. I heard a podcast the other day from sort of an AI insider that said, the number of skeptics who believe that we're not going to achieve, AGI superintelligence is exactly zero. That everybody sort of sees this thing coming. And so, what happens in this world where the economic value of intelligence is zero?
Hmm.
It's going to have profound implications for organizations, for consulting, for coaching, for how we get ahead in the world. And it does get back to this distinguishing feature, I think, of our humanity and of our personal brand. And as you mentioned, this proof of human. On my blog posts now, I have a little badge that says 100% human content. And the reason I do that is I want to assure people that this is me.
Hmm.
This is not from ChatGPT. This is me. You can count on me. It will always be me. And it maintains and nurtures that human relationship that will hopefully result in business for me, consulting, speaking, coming to my retreat, etc.
Hmm. Yeah,
Interesting.
interesting days. Yes, indeed. It's simple. I mean, I've never been really good at spreadsheets, and the best I can do is kind of sum up two columns or maybe multiply column by a number or something like that. I mean, I can sort of get to that level, but these days I have spreadsheets that have very complex formulas that are about 20 lines long, and I've got no idea
Wow.
what the formula, well, I know what the formula does, but I've got no idea how to construct the formula. And yet, using something like ChatGPT, I go in there and I say, here's the structure of my spreadsheet. Here's column A, B, C, D, E. In column F, I wanted to do this. If that's true, I wanted to do this. If that's false, and I wanted to do this. If column B is empty, and so on. And so there's a whole lot of different conditions and a complex calculation. And usually in one or two goes, it gives me the correct formula. And it blows me away every time. And I think, oh, I'm an expert in spreadsheets now.
Well, but it's a good example of exactly what we're talking about, is that you're using AI to be you at your best, right? It creates this new competency for you. And if you're doing that and your competitors aren't, you're distancing yourself from your competitors. So I think that's a great example.
All right. Well, this has been absolutely fascinating conversation. I'm just aware of the time, so I think it's a good point to wrap it up now. It's been great to talk with you again, Mark. Now, before we wrap up, how can people find out more about you, about the book? Where can they get a hold of the book, and maybe even reach out and say thanks for what you've shared with us today?
Well, that would be wonderful. So you don't have to remember my name. All you have to remember is Businesses Grow. That is the name of my website, Businesses Grow, because I knew no one could spell Schaefer. And if you can make your way to Businesses Grow, you can find my blog, you can find my podcast, you can find all my books. The book that we were talking about today is called Audacious: How Humans Win in an AI Marketing World. We also mentioned, I think, my community book, which is Belonging to the Brand. You can find all my books. You can find my social media connections there too. So I'd love to hear from you. Connect with me, stay in touch, and let me know what you think about my work.
Excellent. And of course, we'll have those links in the show notes as always. Now, what action would you like our listener to take from our conversation today, Mark?
Well, I would really love for people to check out the book. I put two years of my life into this book, and for me, writing a book is because I'm desperate to get my ideas out into the world. For me, it's not a PR thing. It's not a branding thing, although it certainly helps. For me, it's like, this is the time where we're facing this existential issue of where do we fit in this world, especially when it comes to marketing. And I put a lot of thought and work and research. I got to interview some of the greatest creative minds in the world, and they shared all their secrets. So, I mean, for $20, you get 2 years of my life. It's a heck of a bargain.
Plus all the insights of those brilliant people. Excellent. Well, thanks so much, Mark. It's been fantastic to chat with you again and to dig into your latest book. Now, it released last week, I believe, as we're recording this. So it is available for purchase, and I'll certainly be putting in my order for purchase because I just had a brief summary to work with for today's episode. So thanks a lot, Mark. It was great to chat again.
Thanks for the great interview. Yeah, thank you so much.